Joining us now, Congressman, Republican, 7th District Dave Brat. That's the Central Virginia area. Some of Richmond, Hanover, Henrico in that area. And he's up for re-election to a third term in November. Dave, good to have you.
Hey, thanks, John. Great to be on.
Okay, so let's go to the budget. You voted no on Friday. It passed over your objections. I guess we're all for debt now, right?
Yeah, I know that was really upsetting. The Republican, we said we're going to play team ball the whole year. For the whole year, the budget committee's on the same page. We do 5 CRs. The whole Republican conference has agreed we're going to plus up military and nothing else. Every time we meet, right? We meet every week. That's the agreement. And then you get to the 5th CR, and all of a sudden leadership goes behind closed doors, and boom, $400 billion. New spending, all of Schumer's priorities. Schumer's happy with it. And $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see. I taught economics for 20 years and ran on that issue for the next generation and the kids. We cannot keep doing this. And so, we caved. You need 9 votes in the Senate, but I don't think they get everything, right? You ought to compromise a little, give them something. But, boy, they got about everything they asked for.
So the debt now is going to go over $20 trillion, right? That's the estimate next year. Yep. With the number of things that have gone on. The president is saying, look, we're going to grow our way out of this if we can get 4.5% growth. Is that a real possibility, Congressman?
You can grow your way enough to pay for our tax cut bill. I looked that up last week. You need 2.75% economic growth to pay for our tax bill. So that was going to be $1.5 trillion over 10 years, right? And so you'd need a huge amount of growth. I mean, right? And the Democrats are just horrified about our $150 billion a year increase, and they just asked for $400 billion increase. So I hope everybody listening gets the basic common sense story, right? The Republicans are forced into a corner. We were going to plus up the military, right? We're still going to have deficits, but nowhere in this ballpark. The Democrats in D.C. make us, right? If you want to have a budget, you have to increase spending on both sides, unless your leadership's going to go to the American people and fight, and that's what I wanted us to do. But to answer your question, it'd be very hard to pay for that much debt, right? You would have to have 4 to 5% growth to pay for all that new chunk as well. And that just pays off the new chunk. That doesn't pay off the $1 trillion deficit underlying it.
So, I mean, even if we got 4.5% growth for 10 years, Dr. Brat, what you're saying is that would just pay for the additional spending and the tax cut. That wouldn't dig into the $20 trillion debt we started with 6 months ago.
No, and it's spending, right? I mean, you didn't see any spending, and I'm a military defense hawk, right? I mean, Iran, Korea, Russia, China, it's all real. Cyber is expensive, but we also don't hear our leadership and the head of the military committees, HASC and all that, going out to the American people and say, look, we need more money, but here's where we found savings, right? We got a new architecture here. Here's the way we're approaching foreign policy. Here's the way we're going to streamline defense. And that, we've got to do better all the way around. I'm all in favor of plus up defense because it's just terrible conditions, right? The sailors, the airmen, they're not getting training. The ships are colliding. It's clear you need more money. But at the same time, you got to have the best management principles you can.
Well, we've got to get the growth just to pay for the additional spending and then have to figure it out from there. Now the president launching this week an infrastructure plan, another $1.5 trillion. How is he going to pay for that?
Yeah, that's what I haven't seen how he's going to do that. I've heard original plans of $200 or $300 billion that'll leverage, going into private-public partnerships and toll roads and that to get you over $1 trillion. But after the tax cut and now after the Democrat $400 billion add-on, which included some infrastructure, I don't see how you come up with another $1.5 trillion. I mean, there's no way. I don't see any way you get to pay for us. Mm-hmm. Right? They've already rated the strategic oil reserve about 22 times. I mean, that's a joke in D.C., right?
Right.
And so The low-hanging fruit's gone. From now on, it's going to be tough.
Well, we'll see how they propose this. Maybe there'll be a gasoline tax or something, but I know that many Republicans will oppose that. I don't have a problem paying. I think we need the $1.5 billion in infrastructure. I mean, it's due time, but you have to pay for it. And the money's got to come from someplace, and you get the benefit of the roads. I mean, we've seen that in Virginia. I am not shy, Congressman. I fought hard for the 2013 Bob McDonnell, I don't know what you want to call it, transportation tax compromise. You can call it whatever you want. Biggest tax increase ever. I fought for that. We were right. You drive now on 64. You go to D.C. The difference in the roads is night and day. But you got to pay for it. This doesn't, I mean, you just can't keep running up debt. So we'll see how that plays out. Okay, let's get to this Democratic memo. Let me just ask you a question. If they simply released the affidavit that was provided to the FISA court judge to get that judge to sign the FISA surveillance warrant, if they simply released the affidavit, why do we need any of these memos?
Well, that's the right question. I think that one's a whole nother level of top security. So getting that released will be harder. But that's what we want that for precisely that reason. We're releasing the backup documents that are summaries of a lot of other documents. But yeah, if you we want to show how in the world what was in that document that got the FISA court judge to say yes.
Right.
We got an inspector general report that's going to be coming. And in the meantime, I wanted this document by Schiff, right on the Democrat side, to be released, but they set it up for the president as a no-win, right? They have.
How?
They do have sources and methods in there. The FBI has said they don't want it released because of that, right? And you'll notice the Democrats said our document, our 4-page document, had sources. It did not. And so that was a lie by Schiff on the Democrat side because ours has been released and everybody's seen it now, right? So that lie has been exposed. But now the Democrats wrote up a 10-page memo with more information that does have sources. The FBI has said so. And so if Trump released it, that would be bad. And if he doesn't release it, it's bad because it looks like he's not being transparent. So they're going to clean it up. They'll release it. It's just politics. The Democrats, I mean, they're in a hard spot. When you got 7 people at the FBI that have been fired or stepped down, something's wrong. Right? I mean, that's all you need to tell the American people. 7 political elites, appointees. This isn't the men and women that serve, right, every day in the trenches. This is the political elites that have been leaking and lying, and it's all out there in emails and texts for everyone to see. And then the last week, the biggest breaking news was the text from the 2 rogue agents at the FBI that said, POTUS wants to see everything. Mm-hmm. And POTUS was Obama. Mm-hmm. And that was after about 2 months of these documents and this process. First of all, where they said we're not going to look into the Hillary Clinton probe anymore, right, and kind of make sure she's innocent. Right. And then they moved toward the Trump campaign. And after that series of events, POTUS, Obama says, I want to see everything you two are doing. The 2 that are sending the texts. And so that's the bombshell, and that goes to the highest levels of government, and that's why you've got some super sensitive stuff going on here, because there's bodies buried all over the place.
And do you think releasing that affidavit is a start to finding out exactly what happened here?
Oh, absolutely. That's the end line on that particular, but there's way more, right? Right. That just establishes, hey, there was foul play here on spying on an American. Then you have these same 2 people basically trying to vindicate Hillary Clinton and let her off. Well, you got that whole channel of information to pursue. Mm-hmm. And then you got the Democrats going after and elites in the FBI going after a political candidate. You got a whole nother series of channel to investigate. So, yeah, there's so much there. It's unbelievable. And a bunch of my friends, right, are on in the House Freedom Caucus, Meadows and Jordan, and from Florida, Matt Gaetz, and all these guys, and Trey Gowdy. They're just doing phenomenal work, along with the chairman, Nunez, and he's being pummeled all over the place. And so the Freedom Caucus is doing just heroic work. I couldn't be more proud of that group. And just going back to the spending issue, too, 3 days ago, the Freedom Caucus was being thrown under the bus, as always, by every network. And then a day later, once the details came out on the budget, everyone said, how in the world can anybody vote for that budget? Right? So the Freedom Caucus every single year comes out as almost the sole group fighting against this spending corruption. We get pummeled. We're paying the price, but we're happy to do it because we think it's the right thing for the country. We think it's what the voters wanted us to do. And we get, the liberal media just is on us all the time. But even some other network came on our case. And the Wall Street Journal would get on our case. And we came through, I think, shining again because we did the right thing.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. The way you guys approached this, certainly it was a viable debate about the budget. I think the president's position is right now we've got to focus on keeping the government open and getting the economy continuing to grow. And I think that was his position. But look, to defend the president here, he never campaigned on the debt. I never went to one rally or was part of one strategic meeting where the president ever made the debt a centerpiece of his campaign. So this wouldn't be shocking that the president would sign this. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
And on that issue, the advisors, right, I don't think anyone went to the president with the true narrative, right? I think they went to him and said, we're going to do opioids, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, it's all good. We're going to have a little transportation funding in there. No one went to him and said, hey, just so you know, you're going to blow open the non-military discretionary 300% higher than Obama's budget. Mm-hmm. Right? I doubt anyone went to him and told him that. Mm-hmm. And so whoever's feeding them the line, I think they're way off. And I don't think he would be happy, and I do have a little information that he's not happy with some of the narrative that has been being fed by the mainstream media, whatever. I don't think he had all the stats on the huge spending increases that just came our way. And that's everybody's fault.
Let's get to your colleague, Mark Warner, the ranking member of the Intel Committee. I really can't believe that he sent these texts to this lobbyist of an oligarch, which is essentially a Russian agent, trying to set up a secret meeting with Michael Steele to get more dirt on Trump. He didn't go through the Intel Committee, obviously, because he said he wanted a secret meeting with no paper trail in his text. He didn't register. He didn't tell anybody. Highly doubtfully told Chairman Richard Burr what he was doing. Looks like a move of desperation for somebody that just didn't have anything, but looks like he's getting a pass. Do you have any take at all on this, Congressman?
Yeah, well, my take is the Senate, right? Our Senate failed on Obamacare repeal. They have no solutions on health care, right, that will bring down the cost or the price of health care. Why is that? Because they run every 6 years, and they don't want to take a tough vote. By the way, on the budget, the Senate just 300 pages into the budget document. I don't know if you know this or if the folks listening know this, but there's a nice little phrase in there also that said the Senate's not even going to do a budget next year. And I'm getting to answer your question about how bad the Senate is. So the Senate is this, they want to do bipartisan legislation. Well, you just saw bipartisan, right? What bipartisan means up in D.C. is $400 billion new spending. And they're all in agreement on this, right? So this is the swamp. And so when you say he doesn't get a hit, it's all on the buddy system up there, right? Everybody's, hey, you get yours, I get mine. The country's going bankrupt. We run every 6 years, and we still don't want to take a vote. They're not going to do a budget. What's that mean? That means Republicans can't use reconciliation this year because you need a budget to do reconciliation. So we can't do any of our big Republican reforms like welfare reform or infrastructure or deal with DACA with 51 votes in the Republican Senate because our senators just signed it away. And so what do I think about him getting a pass? I think that's the way the Senate works, right? This 60-vote rule, and you're seeing the results. The Senate can't get anything done. Now they're not even going to do a budget next year. That's their primary responsibility. And so that's the Senate is just totally failing across the board on every issue except for tax, right? They got tax through. They deserve credit on that. But all the rest of it, it's a buddy system. It's a crony system. It's all built on money, and it's got to be broken up.
So, Congressman, by not doing a budget, by the Senate saying, look, we're not going to do a budget next year, that means there's no reconciliation, which means there's nothing that can get through the Senate without 60 votes, right?
Right. Right.
So basically, they took any chance of a 50 vote plus Mike Pence legislation of being passed. They took that off the table for an entire year. Done.
Right.
Gone.
Right. And that's the way they think, right? They think this, and I'm all for compromise, right? But an eighth grader knows when you have $1 trillion deficits, guess which way you have to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
So this term compromise is being grossly utilized, right, by the mainstream press. What they mean is, hey, the Freedom Caucus, they won't compromise. We won't compromise because when you have $21 trillion in debt already, you don't increase it, you decrease it. So we ought to be compromising on how do you reduce it. And so that's what's going on, and that the Senate is Exhibit A on what the word compromise means. It means don't do anything that's going to solve the problems, and let's do bipartisan stuff where we all look good together, and I get voted in my next 6-year election.
Incredible. All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Dave Brat for being with us today. As always, we enjoy his refreshing candor. For more information, go to davebrat.com. That's davebrat.com.